Hello, I've got the assumption we are streaming. So, it is Cryptic Racing League Season 4, Round 4 of the Elite Division. And it's Spa-Francorchamps. We are waiting on 2 Alpine drivers. However, they are not showing. So we will have the sprint event. And if they aren't existing, come the time we get to the main race, we'll just be having no Alpines. Nice and simple, as I've just dropped my phone, which is always a lovely start to the event. If you're unfamiliar with who I am, I am Harry. I am the Elite Div manager. As someone's tried reaching out to me, but I've just had to turn around to them and went, I'm commentating. But yeah, this is all the fun. As we are going to ride on board with the man setting headlines. It's Vince as of recent. He's entered CRL. He dominated so early on in his spell, but down the hill up towards Radion de la Rouge. It's Radion first, then Eau Rouge up the hill and onto the Kemmel Straight, which is a very high speed segment of track, to say the least. Whole of sector 1 is quite top speed heavy on the brakes for the Lacombe chicane. And then Malmedy down towards Bruxelles, as Lewis has ended up invalidating. So has Jedi. Quite a few drivers being caught out in this one lap fury over qualifying. But Vince currently unfazed. The Red Bull working their way down the hill, giving it absolutely everything they've got so far. Holding it tight to the inside. And then into Lafage chicane. The right, then the left, coming quite quickly, and then into Stavlo, back on the throttle, overtake in use, battery burning down, but it's an absolute best middle sector, as you can see. Some drivers rather struggling with this lap thus far. You've got, of course, Vince and Matty just up the top. But Fiora, your reigning champion and current championship leader, down in 7th. Vince through the bus stop chicane. He's back up to first, dropping back down behind Matty. Over the line, however, what will it be? It'll be pole position. 41.850 for Matty, actually. So perilously close. 14 thousandths of a second, splitting the two of them. As that is sprint over and done with for qualifying. As then it's 14 thousandths, of course, at the top. It's Matty, then Vince. Roadrunner starts from 3rd with Dill in 4th. Adam 5th. Fiora starts from 6th, 1.6 seconds off of pole position. Rocco in 7th, Pasty Smasher will line up 8th with Fast Striker 9th, then Tugger in 10th, Braconnier 11th, Suspension 12th, Keegan 13th, then Jedi no lap, Lewis 15th, Manjaka, Your Mum and George all failing to do it. As Fiora isn't too happy about the adjustment in last minute. But yeah, in a few moments time we will be racing for the sprint race. You can hear the bleeping of my controller as it's signalising that the show is on the road. As the cars line up on the grid for the first sprint race of the Elite Div season. And it's a lights out and away we go here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's Matty versus Vince towards turn 1. The Red Bulls had a superior start. He's going to guide them through. As you can see, Matty just getting ass packed there, as quite a few cars are lagging around. But Matty looks like he will hold on to second, as I believe Lewis has in fact stalled on the start finish. And I know it's just completely disappeared whatsoever. So that is going to be interesting to say least, as there is an Aston Martin off the road. That's your mum in the Aston Martin, getting back underway now as George has gone flying through. But you've got Matty who leads to Vince, Roadrunner, Dill, and then Fiora as they go raging down the hill towards Bruxelles. But the Haas holding on, as you could see the Aston Martin trying to manage it round the outside of the Sauber, unfortunately unable to do so as they go towards Speaker's Corner, trying to make a statement in this race. Is that Aston Martin? They of course got a podium on their debut last week, as your mum has retired from the sprint race, and that will be a qualifying ban going Aston's way. But you could see Rocco trying to manage it round the outside of Adam in the Papaya, and that is 6th place for the Racing Bulls, right behind their championship competitor of Fiora's off the track. Goes, I believe that was Tugger in one of the 2 Mercedes, as that is 9th place for them. But we are about to finish the first lap of the sprint race, as your mum complaining about the Red Bull of, I believe, Keegan. But unfortunately for your mum, as we all start the second lap down the hill. Up the hill, just sorry about that, as I was just stating to your mum in the chat, qualifying banners. I believe they probably heard me in the Twitch stream. Glad to know some of the drivers actually watch it and listen to what's going on. As you could actually see, there was a change in the timing towers, the 2 Mercedes swapping around. as your mum has said, I don't care, you just can't be asked with trying to fight Keegan on the track. Does sound like he is a big menace to society. But irrespective of that, KZ Matty still staying firm in this sprint race, as you've got the top 6 all in a micro DRS train on just the second lap of this race. They've managed to pull away from the McLaren of Adam, however, but yeah, you can see how it all has just faded into one big blur in this race. But Fiora right behind Roadrunner, 2 tenths, closest gap between anyone in that top 5. Will they be able to possibly send a lunge on Roadrunner? No, they'll look to the inside for a brief moment. Just saw there wasn't quite the space and thought they might as well wait it out for another occasion. But Fiora Rocco, in fact, fastest man on track after that first lap, as I believe it's all going to start kicking off over the next lap or so, as Keegan has somehow found a way to get a track limit penalty in the sprint race, which is some untold scenes to say the least. But Rocco getting a run on the other Aston Martin of Dill up towards the Lecombe chicane, as round the outside goes Rocco up into P5 for them. But you could see George just overtaking suspension. That Ferrari now set free. But Vince has managed to pull off a lunge. It's the moment we look at a battle. One more major battle kicks off just ahead, which is a shame. We missed the swap for the lead. But Vince is now leading here in Spa for the sprint race. He actually dominated in Mexico. Pretty sure he took the sprint win and the feature win for Legends Div on Monday. Today's a bit of a different story. It's a much more competitive roster, to say the least. You've got the top 6 all tucked in with one another. Then you've got Adam just sitting there lurking in the background. It's quite opaque, as there is George, who's gone around. I believe there may have been a bit of contact between a drive or two, as Fiora has managed to go to the inside through Blanchimont against Roadrunner. Are they going to even make a lunge on Matty? But no, it's instead Roadrunner going around the outside of the Williams. The Sauber trying to mangle themselves back up into P3 as Rocco having a rough exit, getting put under pressure by the Aston Martin, who's on the inside. For La Source is still going to be ahead of Rocco, as Rocco going to manage to make it last. But the answer for now is Rocco as they go down the hill up towards Rajon de la Rouge. Are they going to pin it wheel to wheel, as just after it is the next DRS zone? Rocco having a few minor corrections, but still going at it. Who's got DRS is the question. Both of them do, for being in range, as Vince has been overtaken by Matty. But is this done quite yet? Rocco on the outside, Deal to the inside. There's contact. Rocco goes off and cuts the corner. Is he going to hand the place back? Is the main question. I do not think he will. He in fact does, which is fair play to the Racing Bulls. But probably frustrating knowing that that's an opportunity to fight for the win out the window here in Spa, as the two Mercedes move themselves up to 8th and 9th, which gives them 3 and 2 points. In this sprint, we do 10 places score points in sprints here, and that is everything that the Mercedes team wants. However, Moonjaka in the Ferrari, just behind Pasty Smasher, who's attached to this group. So Tugger should drop out of the point splitting positions due to the penalties post-race, as now they all work their way through the final part of the lap for the penultimate time. It's Matty versus Vince versus Fiora, a battle to keep an eye out on. However, there's Braconia versus Jedi. Jedi going off the road, handing the place back, and Suspension even giving it a shot now in the Williams. To the inside they look at the Racing Bulls, who lobs it to the inside against Braconia. Will get ahead, will get... I was going to say will get a penalty, but that was Keegan in fact who had it pop up on their board. As for Jedi, did not last that time, but Vince DRS on Matty, also has Fiora to the rear end, looks to the outside in the Red Bull. Can he master his way past the Haas? Not this time. He thought about it, he tried it, just didn't manage to execute it, as now down through Bruxelles for the final time in this race, as it looks adamant that it's going to be Matty who takes this home, unless there's a flip in the battery that manages to see a change in results. As there's yellow flag, that's George who's had a moment with suspension. The Williams has gone round, but again Matty through the Faz chicane and down towards Campus and Stavolo, but leading once more in this main race, well, in this sprint race, as there's Jedi fending off to the inside for Piron against Braconia. Braconia has contact, goes out wide, but George trying to find their way up into P12 to the inside for the Faz chicane. Are they going to pull it off? Yes, they will, but also at the front is Fiora, who's just got ahead of Vince, but it's going to be Matty who enters the bus stop chicane to take the lead and win for the first time in the Elite Div. Take about, especially of a sprint. Actually, he did win out in Las Vegas, as you can see, everyone now crossing the line. Unfortunately for Tugger, however, it's going to be P11 for him, as Sauber and Ferrari pick up some points. Sauber picking up quite healthy points, with Roadrunner up into 4th. As your mum's just pointed out, Keegan 8 seconds off the closest car to him, who even spun on that final lap and had 7 seconds of penalties in 5 laps. As Rocco and Dill having a little bit of an interaction about some dive bombs, but yeah, bet you twist good on it. That is crazy. Last week I was being asked if I spit on it. Now I'm being asked if I twist. The sincerity of this division is absolutely crazy. Yeah. Apparently, Keegan's will isn't wheeling as such. But yeah. That is the sprint race done, however. Your race results. It's Matty who wins, followed by Fiora. Then it's Vince, Roadrunner, Deal, Rocco, Adam, Pasty Smasher, Fire Striker, Munjaka, Tugger, George, Jedi, Braconnier, Suspension, Keegan, and then your mum and Lewis failing to finish. Lewis even failing to start it. As Lewis has just pointed out, some crazy stuff going into chat. If it's another one. But yeah. We are going to have about a 4 or 5 minute lobby intermission, as I'm going to also seize it as an opportunity to grab a drink. As yeah, we've got a minute and a half, so I'm going to go for a brief few moments just to grab a drink, then I'll be back for the duration of the event. Have fun with the sound of fresh air. Yep. Just get your drink. You're waiting for a lobby stuff. And I am back. Someone's asked for an invite. Has he got back in? Yes, he has. But yeah. Main race. Underway in a few moments. Or main event, shall I say. With sprint race out of the way. And now qualifying up next. But yeah, your mum does have a qualifying ban for the qualifying session, which is a shame. But yeah, qualifying now underway. And drivers will all be out on track in a matter of moments to see who will put themselves on the front for a 22 lap race here at Spa-Francorchamps, as I believe that is Vince. No, it's in fact Keegan getting an early bird in this session. But does the early bird always catch the worm is the main question. If Keegan's sprint form is anything to go by, almost certainly not, as the pace difference is quite radical. However, the Red Bull working their way up towards the end of the middle sector, as just a little talk about the championship while we have cars on their outlaps. Williams entering this event, not including sprint results. Williams 65 points, McLaren 53 points, Haas 49 points, Aston Martin 45, Alpine 43, Red Bull 37, Racing Bulls 36, Ferrari 31, Mercedes 30, and then Sauber 7. And by my calculations, Sauber has already doubled that this race alone. Just putting into perspective how good of an event they've had here at Spa-Francorchamps, but also just with the way the gap between 3rd and 9th is a mere 20-ish points. Just shows how ultra competitive this division is, with 12 places scoring points in an event. But more or less, Keegan about to start the first lap of the evening up towards turn 1. Battery in overtake mode as they drop it to about 80%. Brake just after the 100 bollard. Try and hit the apex, taking a fairly tight exit line. But now working their way down the hill up towards Radion de la Rouge, kissing the wall just for a bit of good luck as they keep it going quite nicely, burning some battery. DRS again wide open as they progress down towards the Lecombe chicane, 31.6 after the first sector. Is this going to be a strong enough lap? Begs the question, but we never know. Through Bruxelles, going quite wide of the apex, trying to stay on the road, unable to do so. Then chuck it left for the speaker's corner, or as most people know, the corner with no name. Then poo on, hit that outside curb. Most drivers tend to get right up against it, use the full width of the track. Unfortunately for Keegan, being a bit more precautious about it, as your mum is allowed to do outlaps and in-laps, no hot laps here in qualifying, as your mum just says holy corner cutting to Keegan, which is quite true. But also, if you haven't noticed, the Ferrari behind him has caught about 5 seconds this lap alone, just showing how far off the pace Keegan is running. But through the bus stop chicane, going deep on one apex, going too tight on the other, up to the start finish line, a tarnished lap, but it's a 49.2. George immediately sets a 43.3 as Vince crosses a 41.999. Adam up next, a 44.0, and Dill does a 42 here. But you've got the likes of Tugger in the Mercedes. You've also got the likes of Rocco overline a 42.9 for them, as you've got suspension up next, 7th fastest Jedi in the Racing Bulls. He unfortunately had a rough time in the last appearance, didn't also make last race, 6th place, putting himself right into the middle of the battle zone, as there's Firestrike up to 6th, Manjaka to 5th, 2 Ferraris in the top 5. Matty, however, pushes him to 5th and 6th. Roadrunner going through the S's, Fiora over the line to 3rd. Roadrunner up to the line now, using the battery they have left in their tank of 42.5, 5th fastest for them. Lewis in the Haas, working their way under the DHL bridge towards the bus stop chicane, heavy on the brakes, shimmy it right turn left, a few minor corrections and tweaks, but DRS now in use up to the line. What's it going to be for the Haas? It's enough for 11th fastest, as Tugger on an invalidated lap. Pasty Smasher, however, working their way down through the first sector. What's it going to look like for them here in Spa-Francorchamps? It's going to be a 30.737 for them, as Lewis says he forgot his setup. And that is just going to be beckoning for long-term issues in this race. But for him at the moment, currently sitting in 11th in this session, 5 points in the first 3 races, 18th in the driver's standings. There's definitely a few more points on offer for him this event, to say the least. But your mum's race is going to be something to be studied, is the best way to put it. 9th in the championship, tied 8th with their teammates, and a quali ban to serve due to retiring in the sprint. But Pasty Smasher, absolute best in the middle sector. The game doesn't truly know until everyone's set a lap, or until you've got a lap on the board, to be compared to others, as Pasty Smasher getting a lovely tow from Roadrunner. The teammates' cooperation here at Sauber, but up to the line for the green machine, and is 10th fastest. Sauber definitely starting to look a bit more like their old selves here in CRL. A lap definitely to be commemorated and remembered of for Pasty Smasher. As Keegan has said, he's now using a wheel for his next lap, and your mum says try and get a 47, whereas Jedi turned around and said it will be lucky for him to even hit the 48, which does show what these drivers opinionate about the young Red Bull driver. It's not motivating whatsoever seeing your teammate on provisional pole by 7 seconds as well. But it's not as bad as what you may have seen on Sunday last week, where I got pole in the F2 div, and it was 11 seconds between me and the slowest of the qualifiers. So yeah, that is just to put that into perspective. Keegan isn't the slowest CRL scene, but still, in this division, he almost certainly is, as Fiora pushing themselves around for another push lap. They're currently a 10th off of pole position. Are they able to find the time is the question. Round the final corner up to the start finish line. What's it going to be for the Williams? It's going to be just about quick enough for them. A valiant effort as Pasty Smasher going for another push lap up towards turn 1. We go for this man's qualifying lap, but George also on a qualifying effort just up ahead, as it's Sauber versus Ferrari, to say the least. The Sauber definitely trying to rejuvenate some chance in this championship, even if it's just for 9th in the standings, trying to kickstart that form once more, because currently Mercedes sitting 11th and 17th in this qualifying session. But for Pasty, he's not finding time, as George working his way round Bruxelles. There was your championship leader of Fiora, just going around the outside of the corner, making sure they're out of the way of the galloping Ferrari as they go down through P1. They've invalidated their efforts, so we will go back to Pasty Smasher, who is currently on a valid run. Whether or not they will be finding time after the middle sector, we are about to find out, but it's currently a 44.176 for them, dancing over the turmoil, getting a bit high on some of the curbs. But at the end of the middle sector, what's it going to be for them? 1.22 seconds off. Really not something to remember. Whereas Tugger is a 30.8 after the first sector, and the Mercedes are looking to try and put a lap around P10 to try and compete with that Sauber of Pasty Smasher and his teammate of Fire Striker. Last week there was 700ths between the two Mercedes on the grid, split them from 40, from I think it was 13th and 15th that day. Currently it looks like they could both be eyeing up a top 10 start. But through the bus stop chicane up to the start finish line they head now. What's it going to be for Tugger after one lap? It's going to be 9th fastest. A good lap to say the least for them, as you've got Rocco Lieber in the Sauber, half a second up after the first two sectors, trying to help Racing Bulls as much as possible, who have fallen off after pretty much a pointless Silverstone, and it's 4th place for him. He's still a good 3 tenths off of the man on pole position, so keep an eye out on that here, as that should surely find us where a bit lower. Adam up to the start finish line in the McLaren, up to 7th. Good job for him. Keegan over the line, he's invalidated, but Vince is on a push, as Dill says he loses everything in that final sector. It's quite a difficult one with the bus stop chicane, but Vince, he's found 4 tenths and really starts to punch a hole in the air here in Spa. But Roadrunner finding some time. Could they maybe try and compete with the likes of Vince? Up to the line they go, and it's a 42.048, 100, well, yeah, 100 off of P3. As Fiora is saying, you have to save like crazy to have battery for the final sector, which seems like is some drivers' strategies here. But is Dill on a representable push? No, he's not. Rocco isn't. He's just trying to work his way to the pit lane. But we've got the likes of Jedi on an invalidated lap, and Braconia in the McLaren, hoping to get a bit closer to Lewis in the Haas. Whether or not they'll be able to do it, we're about to find out. 5 seconds down. That is a no, slapping me round the face for having that false hope in him possibly being able to find time. As I believe everyone is on an in, apart from these two Ferraris on an outlap and Pasty Smasher, who is also on an outlap, and Fiora in the Williams, who is going through the fast chicane, so keep an eye out on them. But George working up to the start finish line now. The Ferrari working to turn 1. What will they be able to put on the board? Currently, of course, 8th fastest, 4 tenths off of the man in 7th of Adam, as McLaren definitely trying to search for some points against Williams, but it really does not look like it's going their way, with Fiora being in such imperious form at the current moment. But DRS wide open for the Ferrari, working their way to the end of the middle sector. What's it going to be like for them? It's going to be 41 thousandths improvement. It's such a minimal gain, but that gain could be the difference between the likes of pole and second. We've seen it being insanely close so far this season. Expect another close qualifying, with the gap between second and fourth being just a tenth of a second, and then even the gap between 11th and 14th being less than 2 tenths, as George keeping it valid after going off through Pouon, now into the fast chicane. Is he going to be able to finalise this lap and put himself up into that top 7 maybe. Round the campus corner, hoping to hit a home run. No, he won't. He's 4 tenths down. Massive loss for them, as you have Fire Striker on an in-lap. So we'll look at Munjaka 67 thousandths up after the first sector, as there's going to be 2 things that they're going to find out, and that is whether or not Munjaka can get closer to George and whether or not they can creep into that top 7 here in qualifying. There's 2 minutes 21 to go. Everyone's starting to scurry their way out of the pit lane for a last dire attempt at pole position, or even a lap quicker than what they currently have on the board. But for Munjaka, up to the line, they've used all their deploy, and it's not going to be an improvement, unfortunately. But Fiora, hopefully doing a push now. He's working their way up towards turn 1. They didn't push that time. It was a double warm-up lap. Try and get the extra temperatures in to that car. Suspension has retired from qualifying as your mum is out on an outlap. I believe this is to help deal in their attempt for pole position by giving a tow in that Aston Martin, but it depends on how close they truly get to one another, because it does not look like your mum is going to be dropping back too much. But Fiora chucking it through that chicane, giving it absolutely everything. He knows it is him against the world at the moment, because Vince is definitely like the CRL version of Doctor Doom, bringing doomsday. But will it be inevitable, or is it going to be stoppable by the Soul Avenger of Fiora as he goes through the Faz chicane, working his way down the hill? But you can just see how much harvesting he has done in the first 2 sectors to give him a massive spurt of life in the final sector. He's still 2 tenths up, however, so could this be the lap from the man chasing pole position? Will they be able to get it? They're burning, battery burning, and now trying to save a tiny bit for the rush to the start-finish line, as they even drop to none just to spare themselves ever so slight battery to give them the ripest of opportunities. Up to the line though for Fiora, it's not going to be enough. He's still a 10th shy, which is a shame, but it means that it's all open for Vince. He could get away without a lap, but you have to bear in mind there's KZ, Matty, Roadrunner and Rocco Lieber, who will not go down without a fight here in Spa. But Pasty Smasher working their way to the final sector. Is that Sauber going to be able to shoot themselves up into the top 8? Possibly. He's 4 tenths up at the moment, just needs to find another 3 tenths in this final part to go ahead of George. But currently, with the way things stand, they could be in the top 9 for certain. As they work their way to the bus stop chicane, Pasty Smasher, what will it be? Will they be able to smash this out of the park? They've had such a rough season at Sauber. Over the line, however, it's going to be P10. Tugger up next, hoping to knock them back down. They will do so. P9 is in their back pocket. Jedi over the line stays 13th fastest. You've got Matty rushing through that final sector, 4 tenths up at the moment. Is it going to be enough for them to go quicker? Big correction in the final corner, and they're going to miss out on pole position by 2 tenths. A pivotal mistake, but Rocco is the man. Fastest in the middle sector. Dilbergs using the toe of the Williams ahead. Fiora giving them that toe. They knew that it was going to have to come either now or later, but Vince reasserts his pole position. Deal over the line. What's it? It's a 41.990. Rocco Lieber up to the line in the Aston Martin, and is going to only be 6th place for them, as it looks like Vince cannot be stopped, as unfortunately it's all going Croatian in this event. As Vince lines up on pole by, believe it or not, one of the largest pole margins of the season. Then it's Fiora second, Matty third, Deal fourth, Roadrunner fifth, Rocco sixth, Adam seventh, George eighth, Tugger ninth, Munjaka in 10th. Then it's Pasty Smasher Lewis, Fire Striker, Jedi, Braconia, Suspension, Keegan, and then your mum. Last but not least. As we have gave them 3 minutes until we go racing. So, ladies and gents, feel free to go to the chat and put in your predictions for pole position, not pole position, for the race win. As, yeah, that is a hell of a qualifying session, to say the least. As Roadrunner has just asked, what are the front guys doing in terms of fuel for this race? As someone predicts Lewis for the win, which is going to be a long shot for the Haas driver. Fire Striker being egoistical, saying they are going to take it home again. I believe it's 11th or something on the grid, so bear that in mind. But if you want to join CRL, you can find a link in the Twitch chat as of now. If you're seeing it on YouTube when it's posted, it will be somewhere in either the comments or the description for you all to get your hands on. As Deals asked if it's 22 laps, Brian saying 234. I feel like he's getting muddled up with this and a 24-hour race at Spa. But yeah, we can ready up in 50 seconds, so don't go anywhere. The race is about to start, but for this championship, Fiora leads on 64. Then their closest competitor, who's still racing, is Matty on 40, Rocco 34, then Vince on 28. So do keep that in mind for the main race here, entering this event, of course. But Fiora managing to take a point out on Vince and Rocco. So yeah, that gap is going to have to be trimmed right down. Let's see if anyone has comprehended the time. Because, yeah, a rather generous one. Legends Div on Monday or whatever started their main race 6 minutes ago. But I'm a bit more careful with time. I've got a bit more to spend. Because I've got to do like the dishwasher, put tortoises to bed and all that. Just prolong it as long as possible. But anyways, 5 lights are up here And it's lights out and away we go. Once more here in CRL Elite Div for Season 4 Round 4. Vince fending off to the inside. This time doing the same thing. But of course the cars getting a bit frisky, riding one another as Fiora just holds on against Vince. The Williams managing to get past the Red Bull before Radion de la Rouge. They go up the hill on towards the Camel Straight now. As you can see, pretty much everyone has got away nice and cleanly. However, George has had a little bit of contact. They've had an offing in this race. Vince, but in second, deal to the inside against Rocco. There's Matty who squeezed him out. Rocco's gone cutting the corner, trying to hold position. Roadrunner's even pounced on the Aston Martin now, who is down into 6th. The same man who came home P2 or whatever at Silverstone, having to do a bit of fighting to work their way back up as Munjaka in 7th, giving Lewis a right old squeeze, who's got ahead through Speaker's Corner. Tugger having to make a massive move or whatever to fend off. Going into the back of the Ferrari is everyone going wide through Pouon, trying to carry as much momentum as possible to go for a lunge as your mum, who started 18th in this race, already P10, ladies and gents. If you were Aston Martin, you'd be celebrating your heads off just looking at that first lap for your mum. It's been a magnificent start. Just hope it continues throughout. Then we could see one hell of a drive. But of course, your mum's won once in CRL, and unironically, that once was here at Spa-Francorchamps last season. But Adam fending off against Pasty Smasher, the McLaren in P12. They've had a fairly rocky start, to say the least, but they're on the hard compounded tyres, so you'd at least expect that. But Pasty Smasher round the long way against the McLaren. Surely that is P12 for them now? Yes, it is. Nice and easy suspension in P16. Just unfortunately having a bit of contact through the first corner of lap 2, but you can see a bit further back is Manjaka to the inside against Lewis, and then Fire Striker even going past against the Haas driver. 2 cars on 1 driver in the same straight. Just a shame. And then your mum even going to the inside for Malmedy down towards Bruxelles. The Aston persists on the inside and prevails up into P9. No effort needed for them as their charge is 110% on, as they really have kicked into gear here at Spa. They knew that there was a race on the line, and they thought they might as well give it all that they've got from that qualifying ban, and they're already up into 9th place here, which does look like quite easy pickings for them here in Elite Div. And they are now eyeing up a move on possibly Fire Striker towards the bus stop chicane. The Aston Martin closing in against the Mercedes, looks to the inside. Are they going to go for a lunge? They'll go to the outside for the bus stop chicane. Fire Striker breaks late. He's going to go deep. He's going to hit Munjaka. They all make contact and off they go. Your mum going to be furious with that, because that's all their hard work undone, and down to 13th they will go. But Lewis leading the train, as you can see everyone tucked in behind, as Tugger trying to go around the outside of a stranded Munjaka, who's of course just had that little moment with Fire Striker. As up the hill is Munjaka going to overtake Lewis. There's contact. Lewis getting so close to sending them both into wall as it's all kicking off, but Pasty Smasher survives. Lewis plummeting down the order. Your Mum goes by, Jedi goes by, and Lewis has simply gone from 7th down to 13th in the span of 10 seconds as Adam and Munjaka's had contact. The Ferrari off the road. Adam also plummeting down the field. Fire Striker is going to take another place, and so will Suspension. But boy oh boy, it's all kicking off as the Ferraris having a whole load of hell, as George pitted last lap, probably picked up some wing damage somewhere. They're going to have to do at least a 2-stop in this race. And then Munjaka down in P16 thus far. A team that's struggling for performance, sitting 8th in the championship, looking like they could turn out of this race as low as last, because the way Saubers are going 4th and 8th, they are definitely going to catch up the team in red. But your mum back up into P9, seeing whether or not they can pick up P8 this lap to the outside against Pasty Smasher. Surely it's going to be job done, not too much to fight about it, but Pasty Smasher almost seeing the same fate that Fire Striker saw a lap ago. They'll use DRS down towards turn 1. Can the Aston Martin get ahead of the Sauber now? No, they won't, unfortunately. But your mum taking a tighter line on the exit of the corner, trying to give it absolutely everything they have got in this race to get back ahead. Down the hill, then straight back up the valley as we enter the Kemmel Straight. But you've got Rocco and Deal wheel to wheel. Deal looking to the inside. Rocco's going to show him the door, but Pasty Smasher and your mum wheel to wheel. Your mum trying to force it 3 wide here. They're going to be in the middle of the kerfuffle. Both Pasty and your mum dropping the rear end, but your mum's going to get past 2 cars in a brilliant move. Definitely a overtake of the season contender with that beautiful double move. Well, so Lewis fighting over P10 against Jedi in the Racing Bulls. Racing Bulls trying to do everything they can in this championship, while Aston Martin definitely are on 1 ride and a half, giving Williams a good run for their money in both the combined and Elite Div Championship. Aston Martin's never been this competitive in CRL as far as I can remember. But Keegan, of course, AI being ghosted, George will swiftly move themselves up into P17. But you've got Adam versus Braconnier in the 2 McLarens, the 2 newly made teammates already going tusk to tail. But for Adam, it's a relatively easy move that sees him up into 13th now. Can they work their way into the points? And maybe even a top 10 is on the cards, because once he's got past Fire Striker, there's 2 seconds to Lewis, and everyone pretty much a second apart, up to your mum, who is in P7 in this race. But we can again look at some of the front runners. Roadrunner getting quite close to the back of Matty in that Haas. They just have to bear in mind how long is left as to whether or not we will see an undercut maybe come into play from one of them. The race was won last season through an undercut from your mum that gave them the momentum to just pull ahead of the likes of Fiora and then fend it off until the end of the race. It was a great day for his league racing career then. It's not been as great of a day in the season 4 return here, but still having a wonderful drive. It's last to 7th so far. Can it be more? Only time will tell, but Braconnier has just got past suspension in the McLaren, as Fire Striker just has Adam tucked in behind him on the hard compounder tyres. The hards, of course, probably the freshest set as things stand, so there could be a little bit of a fiasco. Working to the bus stop chicane, Lewis, Fire Striker and Adam, a 3-way battle here, but we also have to bear in mind what's going on up the front. We haven't seen him pretty much since the opening lap. But Vince, half a second on Fiora, 4/10 now as they climb up the hill. Can Vince ascend up to the race lead? However, as Lewis has retired from the race. That's the hat out. Vince to the outside on Fiora, and the Red Bull will go through to take and claim a thoroughly deserved race lead. It's been a while coming after losing it on the first lap, but it's finally came back to the man who should have had it, as now we just sit and wait to see what Fiora's response to that will be. As Lewis saying 14th to 7th, and then someone who forgot how to drive and took out his front wing That's the main cause to the DNF. Suspension, your first penalty bearer of today. 3 seconds for the Williams, which is quite surprising. I would have thought Keegan would have had it by now, based off he had 7 seconds of penalties in the sprint race alone. But for Fiora, staying quite nice behind the Red Bull at the moment, not looking like they are disappearing anytime soon, and they're saving quite a bit of battery as well. As Fiora up towards turn 1 here for lap 7, you can see Matty and Roadrunner tucked in just behind in a fight for 3rd place. This is really proving to be one big testament of skill, because if you bear in mind, every single driver in that top 6 in this race has got a podium at some point this season. Fiora had one in Silverstone and in Barcelona. Vince had one last time out in Silverstone with a race win. You've had Matty win it in Las Vegas. You've had Roadrunner take home 2nd in the opener. You've had Dill take a 3rd at Silverstone. And then you even have Rocco, who took a 2nd at Vegas. So all those drivers, they know what it's like to get a podium here. But it's just so competitive between the group of them. If this was round 1, this would be a season-long battle. Unfortunately, they've all had their own ups and downs, like Rocco having a DNF last race, Vince only joining from last race, Dill also only joining last race, Roadrunner having a hiatus of 2 races as their reserve, Matty having a shock horror of a Spanish GP and trying to work their way back up in a championship comeback. They've only closed 4 points on Fiora, however, in the span of 2 races, which makes it look quite difficult to catch this Williams, who looks like they're going to be further extending their championship lead over KZ Matty, whilst Vince dropping the gap from about 36 to 30, which does highlight how close these guys are, and it's so difficult to gain points. You really need your competitor to fall off the cliff edge, as Rocco has left the session, so I'm going to send them an invite quite quickly. And also I'm going to send Keegan one, because apparently he's stating about having internet issues. Keegan's not online, so nothing I can do about that. But Fiora, will-to-will with Vince, the Red Bull caught off guard while I was sending out invites, but the Williams thought he might as well take a send, always doing better when off camera. So now I'm going to keep it on camera a bit to put the pressure onto the championship leader of this race. But you've got Fire Striker versus Jedi, the Mercedes to the inside against the Racing Bulls. This is for P10. The Mercedes' best result, however, being about P7 in this season. So they're trying to work their way back up, but Tugger also trying to overtake their teammate in the drivers. They're sitting 13th and 14th at the moment, fighting over those minor points, but they're so consistent at it. There's near enough nothing splitting them, because after the first 3 races, 2 points split the Mercedes, whereas at Aston Martin it's pretty much identical at their team. But Rocco versus your mum, the Racing Bulls, of course, with a disconnection, dropping down. Fiora into the pits, Matty and Roadrunner also into the pits. So we are going to try and send Rocco another invite, because it's just their race fading to dust here. A man who's been wanting an Elite Division Championship just falling out race after race of that frame. 30 points behind in the championship. That's looking at maybe up to 50 come the end of today's race, as in the best way possible it is falling apart for them. A disconnection in Silverstone led to a game bug that DNF'd him from the race. And then here, another disconnection. It just does not want to go the Croatians' way whatsoever. As you can now see, Adam even promoting himself up into 6th place on the track. But do bear in mind, where Fiora comes out compared to Vince, the undercut is of course on, and then Matty and Roadrunner also trying to spark a flame, just trying to go around town with some gasoline and burn a flame, as Morgan Wallen would say. But who is really the problem? As Your Mum has just had a moment, they've gone deep through the Faz chicane, and now has KZ Matty all over the back of them. The fresh hards versus deterring mediums, as Rocco has rejoined the session, hoping to put himself back in the fight for the possible points. As Matty looking to the outside against Your Mum, the space has been given. The Aston Martin just going to be a little mobile chicane, but quickly dives off into the pit lane. That is the Aston out of that mess, and now able to put fresh hards on and try and go the distance here in Spa. But a bit further back you've got Tugger, Braconia and Pasty Smasher all in a matter of seconds. Braconia into the pit lane, so it's now a straight duel between the Sauber and the Mercedes for track position here. 9th and 10th on the road at the moment, and they've just got Your Mum not too far in the distant future of them, so could we maybe see a wider fight for position come into play, as Lewis has centre clear. So I'm going to have a little look at it, just see what the hell happened. But it's a lap 3, the Ferrari makes contact, and that is where the Haas just plummets down the field. So yeah, that is what we literally caught at the start of the 3rd lap. But yeah, that's the joys of having a bit of contact and then losing all that momentum in such a high speed part of the track. You do just get engulfed by the cars around you, and you kind of do become a sitting duck in that sense. But you've got Menjaka right behind suspension. Can the Ferrari find themselves up into 14th here today? It's a move that's been longing. It's a move that's been very much a burden for them. But hopefully round the outside of Pouon, and that is them ahead of suspension, turning into him, driving him straight off the road, and both of them into the wall, as that is Menjaka putting the Williams out of the race. And unfortunately that will be an adamant league ban for the Ferrari, because that is just unacceptable in general. As Fiora are probably wondering what the hell has just happened, or is that a reaction from Lewis? But now, look at what that does for Vince. Mediums on the car. He's going to get a free pit stop. As now someone has just jumped at suspension, calling him a dirty driver, when we've literally just watched Menjaka take the Williams out of the race. I'm sorry, but I've had suspension for 2 seasons or whatever now, and I've not seen him be that dirty. He's only been reported twice in CRL history, penalised once. and then that accusation comes flying at him. I'll be honest, I'm with suspension here. He has done nothing wrong. It's the Ferrari that's done wrong here, as that is just unacceptable. As Braconia saying all he does is push people off the track. I've not seen that narrative as such. As you can hear the typing, that's me trying to defend the driver from the pouncing of the thingy. So Firestriker, what happened? Into the Faz chicane. If you know where that is, it's the chicane in the middle sector before the likes of Stavolo. Pretty much. Munjaka uses battery, goes alongside and just turns suspension into the wall and puts him out of the race. And Munjaka pretty much roamed free, then has gone around and DNF'd. So it will be a league ban. As Munjaka saying, what's wrong with some of the drivers? He's just said, what's wrong with some of the drivers? And it's like, I'm sorry, but you just drove him into the wall. I think the only driver who's got something wrong with him is him. But yeah. So I'm sorry, but doing that is just a league ban. Irrespective of where you look, it is a league ban. You can't argue that as clean driving or deserved, because I'm sorry, I'm defending the man here. Like, he even had to fucking dash in Las Vegas due to a family emergency. That's irrespective of what's happened today. But it's like, when he's on track, he's either left on his own or relatively clean. He's a hard racer, but he doesn't drive dirty as such. So as yeah, suspensions just came to me going, did I defend dirty or anything? And I went, no, don't stress it. Ferrari's just a lunatic is the best way to put it. But yeah, your mum actually seeing the positive of it all gives everyone a chance to catch up, eh? That's better than nothing. As currently, the two Astons on the podium. Fiora's tucked in behind Vince. But yeah, I'm still flabbergasted by the sight. As Firestriker's asking the safety car to get quicker. I'll try and send a telepathic message as he's saying it's not too hard to floor it. But really, it's so then we can try and go racing as soon as possible by cramping everyone up. But Keegan, I'm sorry, but I think he's slower than the safety car, so it could be a fair few laps. But it's even AI, so it's like, you're going to have to sit and wait for that Red Bull to catch. That could be 2-3 laps. But yeah, just scrolling through Discord at the moment, trying to see if anything's been sparked or said. But yeah, Fiora is now typing, your championship leader. We're kind of getting little like mid-race interviews or comments from the drivers. We're just going to be reading them out throughout this safety car. As Fiora said, they were on for a smooth win without that safety car. It's a shame that it came, especially in the manner that it did, but it's going to be a very interesting race to the line now, because bear in mind, Dill has taken a big jump. He hasn't re-pitted. He's committing to those hards just because the wear is so low, so he thinks he can try and fight for third with what he's got. You've got KZ Matty right in behind. He usually doesn't back down without a fight. You've even got likes of Rocco Lieber in P8, out of place. Adams known to be quick. He's on mediums. Roadrunner's known to be quick. He's also on the medium. So it's like, could those creep their way up through the field? You've got the two Mercedes in 9th and 11th at the moment. You've even got the two Racing Bulls in 8th and 10th. So it's all to play for, as we are hopefully going to have it in this lap. But for those interested in what's next for these titles, it is Qatar in a week's time for the Elite Div round 5. You'll be quite lucky to know that it's a back-to-back sprint. Then you have Canada, Australia, Monaco, Mexico, then Brazil to round off this CRL season. Yes, I said Monaco. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why I've put it on the calendar. It's going to be either a snooze fest or a wreck fest, so definitely tune into that one. That is going to be on the 27th of May, I believe. Whereas the safety car is in, but in terms of the title, Aston Martin and McLaren both have the momentum into this race, as Fast Strikers brought up a possible no damage race will be discussed for your sanities, but Vince is going to have full control over what happens in the next 30 seconds, as it'll be his choice as to when he is going to go. And he does just hold on, gets all the urgent tyre temp he needs. Fiora poised behind him, waiting for the Red Bull to run so he can react. Round the final corner, we are now going racing once more here in CRL Season 4 of the Elite Division, Round 4 at Belgium, but it's Fiora versus Vince. No moves made there, as you can see Roadrunner getting a bit feisty behind Matty to the inside. The Sauber surely going to be ahead there as they go down the hill. That is the Sauber and the Haas wheel to wheel working their way through Radion and Eau Rouge, but Matty's going to fend on with those hard compounder tyres coming into clutch, the extra grip, the extra downforce as such, managing to keep their chances alive in that fight for as long as possible. But you can just see how eager that Sauber is to make some ground. Sauber's highest scoring event is 4 points in the season opener at Barcelona. Then they scored 2, then they scored 1, pretty much halving every race. And now here today, they're going above and beyond. They're looking at surplus of 20 points, which is definitely a result to remember, whereas Ferrari in this championship, it started with 30 in round 1, leading the constructors. Then they only bagged 1 in Vegas. Then they went pointless in Silverstone. They're going pointless again today with the rate in which things are going. But George currently sitting in P12, so there's a glimmer of hope for them. Then you've got Mercedes, who's had 13, 9 and 8. They are looking at taking another low point sum. And then you've also had Racing Bulls, who went 18, 18 and pointless. Aston Martin 0, 15, 30. At McLaren 0, 15, 38. So it's like everything can happen. As Roadrunner trying to make a move on Matty Work, didn't manage to get it off as Lewis is typing away as DRS has become enabled in this race. As Lewis asking if people call what happened rape or rape, because he feels like he's been caught up in quite a gory act of wheel-to-wheel racing down the Kemmel Straight. But you've got Fiora in DRS range of Vince, so close, closing in to the inside they're going to go. The Red Bull pretty much left defenceless there as through goes Fiora up into your race lead here. Your mum trying to fight against Adam. He said he would love to work his way up into the top 5 as Pasty Smasher going wheel to wheel with Jedi. The Sauber up into 10th and George even pouncing for position, but Jedi's going to try and keep his nose pinned. He knows that every single point is going to be crucial for Racing Bull's resurrection in this Constructors' Championship. We're only about 40% down, but there's still so much time for things to change as Adam gets 3 seconds for track limits. That's going to promote your mum up into the top 6 as long as the Aston Martin can stay with the papaya in this race. But for Jedi, he is going to be beaten and have his chances of taking home 2 mere points squandered by George. It's going to be 1, but Tugger is also behind, so Tugger could maybe make it pointless for that secondary Racing Bulls driver, which would not be ideal whatsoever. As Roadrunner, again, quite close to the back of Deal. Is he going to try and do a replica move on what he'd done against KZ Matty? He goes to the inside, has a slight front lock-up, doesn't go and get the move done, but he's going to try and get the exit out of the final corner, use some DRS to close that gap in, but he knows just to wait for the run to the Kemmel Straight, take a wider line on the apex of turn 1, try and keep those tyres as intact as possible because it's less steering inputs, less steering angle, less strain on the tyres as a result. But up through Rajon de la Rouge, the Sauber mighty close to the Aston Martin, going to use DRS now, try and go the long way. They'll have the outside for Lecombe, but even KZ Matty to the inside against Steele and holding it against Roadrunner, but just backing out in the last moment. Could have been another double move into the Lecombe chicane, but KZ Matty thought otherwise. He knew that it's better to wait it out and take time with it because there's still quite a bit left in this race, about 6 laps left of racing, so there was no need to urgently rush past the Sauber. But as a result, has he just missed an opportunity because Roadrunner is now putting the foot to the floor, trying to hunt down Vince for second place in this race, which would be pretty much revolutionary for Sauber in the constructors fight. Could see them quite close to Racing Bulls in this, which I do think is something to keep an eye out on in the long run, because Racing Bulls sitting 7th in this championship, but if the result goes their way they could easily be in the top 3. But if it doesn't, then they have to fight it out, as your mum and Rocco going wheel to wheel, whilst Adam and Dill also going wheel to wheel. Doesn't look like Rocco's regained his car as actually, yeah, he has. It was just ghosting for a brief moment as Rocco ahead into turn 1. They've got the move done, while Dill being overtaken by Adam, which is starting to become a big deal for that man in P6. He's just falling apart in this race. Hopefully those older hards will start to kick back into life against those mediums as your mum overtakes Rocco for P7 in this race. Adam having Deal round the outside. The Aston Martin's trying to regain both places in one foul swoop, but the McLaren able to hold on. The charge from the team in British Racing Green, as just up ahead is Roadrunner all over the back of Vince in the Red Bull. Could we see a swap for P2 in this race? What I told Fiora this morning is if they win today, they become the most successful driver in CRL with 8 race wins, which doesn't sound a lot, but for season 4, where on average each division has about 8 race calendar on average, this season hopefully being the longest in terms of races done of 10, we are going to see Fiora take that spot for the most race wins. It was Konami with 7 entering today, tied with Fiora. As of the end of the day, we can see Fiora take that away from the Puerto Rican driver. As Rocco and your mum having a bit of a fight, Rocco instead going quite deep, I believe, and now having to unfortunately wait the cars by. That's such a shame though for Racing Bulls. And Rocco into the pit lane now. Is that going to be them out of this race? Take a second DNF. Yes, it will be for Rocco. He sees no point in trying to pursue further points here in the Elite Division, which is a shame for Racing Bulls, but it means Jedi in the other car will get P12 and will get 1 point to his name come the end of today. As unfortunately the one team that's really suffering is the Alpine, as Rocco's saying, I don't know what's the point anymore. So it looks like it's been a rough day in the office for him. He's just not been able to string form together. He's starting to struggle as well. Is it due to relentlessly being caught up in shenanigans such as the disconnect? He was definitely on track for a possible podium if the disconnect didn't come in Silverstone. He had the disconnect that saw him end up dropping out the race in general. And then in the Legends div, he just doesn't seem like he has the same spurt of life anymore, not being able to compete as such with Fiora, with Vince, who really are becoming some imperious figures on that grid. But here, lap 20 of 22 has begun, and Fiora holding a 3-second lead over that Red Bull. It does look quite clear what way this is going to go, but the question marks linger over third place. Matty starting to close back in on the Sauber for P3 here today. Will Matty be able to put that Haas back where it belongs on track, or are they just going to have to wait and take home P4? But they're so close to dropping into a second. I believe they have in fact done so through the Lacombe chicane out of Malmedy. The gap sitting 9/10 and closing, but those hards definitely becoming better tyres per lap as George has got past Pasty Smasher. That is P9 for the Brit now, whilst Pasty Smasher does drop down to P10. Tugger tucked in behind in P11 as Vince has now got 3 seconds for track limits. The Red Bull under pressure now. Roadrunner and Matty will be doing absolutely everything to get them both within 3 seconds of the Red Bull to minimise the points they can score in this championship. As they round out of the Stavlo curve up towards Blanchemont, they're going to give it everything, whilst George giving it everything to a point where he's going wide of the track limits, fully extending it as much as he can to have a fighting glimmer of hope against Firestriker in the Mercedes. Closing in, will use very little battery, but just doing everything in their power to close in and have a shot against the Mercedes, because time is indefinitely running out here at Spa as we enter the penultimate lap for these guys up towards turn 1. Can George go for a lunge on Firestriker? They'll wait for the Kemmel Straight, which is such a typical manoeuvre for these drivers to do. But the fighting's at Aston Martin. Your mum versus Deal. This is over. Who's going to come out ahead after this race? In the drivers and it's going to be Your Mum up into P6, hoping they can now pursue after Adam. But George to the outside against Fire Striker, Pasty to the inside. Is it going to be another double move? The Sauber fell victim to one earlier, tried doing it here, doesn't manage to do so. Now Fire Striker trying to tangle with the Sauber, have a little bit of a spicy tango, but unable to get themselves back up into P9. So it's Fire Striker down in P10, Tugger in P11. The Mercedes definitely trying to hold on to every last point they can, but unfortunately for them, just unable to do so thus far, as Vince has dropped out of the 3-second barricade against Roadrunner. So it does look like that P2 has been confirmed, and that is one less battle to worry about. But for Pasty Smasher, he's got a track limit penalty in this race, and for the likes of Fire Striker and Tugger, they are both sitting within a second. They could try and fight it out on track against Pasty Smasher, or they can fight it out between each other for P10 in this race. Whilst you do have KZ Matty 4 tenths behind Roadrunner for the final lap. Is the Haas going to be able to get ahead of the Sauber in the final attempt of doing so? Going down the hill up towards Radion de la Rouge now. They'll pick up DRS through the detection zone, so they are going to get a spurt of 15 miles an hour down the main straight. Are they going to be able to pull off the move is the question. Battery being burned, trying to gain every single metre of ground as possible. To the inside goes Matty, and Matty manages to just place the car there as he does push off Roadrunner. Is the Sauber going to try and argue that, because he knows it's a podium on the line, and for Deal he has got 3 seconds. So Your Mum confirmed to take P6, but will be P5 due to Adam's own penalty in this race. So Aston Martin looking like they'll take home P6 and P6 and P7 on track, P5 and P7 off track, as Adam does slot down to P6 as a repercussion. But Fire Striker versus Tugger, 4 tenths between them at the moment. They're going to fight through the Belgian forest. But for the final time this race, Fiora has been fantastic, has been fabulous in everything they've managed to fathom out of this race, as they are going to head up to the bus stop chicane for the final time. They truly have parked the bus and will win in Spa to extend their championship lead. After round 4, Vince will take home P2. Then it's going to be Matty and Roadrunner up next over the line. The Sauber will wave over for 4th, but question will be whether or not he'll get 3rd after the race. Your Mum will be happy to take home P5 from last on the grid. Adam in 6th, Dill in 7th. George is going to be 8th, as unfortunately for Tugger, he's not going to be able to get ahead of Fast Strike, as it's a drag race to the line. Tugger misses out, unfortunately, by 52 thousandths of a second between the two Mercedes, which is sublime for them. They're so close in terms of their on-track rivalry. But it's going to be P9 and P10 for the Mercedes team today. Braconnier will be P13 round the final corner over the line, and then it's Keegan to round off the race in 14th. As it's Fiora who wins here today, followed by Vince in 2nd. Matty takes home 3rd, Roadrunner 4th, Your Mum in 5th, Adam 6th, Dill in 7th, George 8th, Fire Striker 9th, with Tugger in 10th by 52 thousandths. Pasty comes home 11th, Jedi comes home 12th, Braconnier in 13th, and then it's Keegan, Rocco, Munjaka, Suspension and Lewis all failing to finish. However, that's been me for today. I hope you've all enjoyed, and you can find us live, hopefully again, on Sunday for the F2 div. I can't confirm whether it's a POV stream or in fact a commentated stream. But for now, hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your weeks, and I'll see you when I'm 18. Goodbye.